If you're watching this, it's because God has been removing people, opportunities, and false securities from your life until you're almost completely alone. Don't scroll away. What you're living right now is not random, and it's not punishment. It's one of the clearest signs that God has decided to work with you in a way most men will never experience. In the next few minutes, you're going to understand why this dark season might actually be the beginning of the strongest version of you. Look around you. That message was left on read. That friend who knew your secrets now only replies when it benefits him. That person you would have given everything for walked away exactly when you needed them most. The family you thought was solid no longer asks how you are. They just demand, accuse, or stay silent. The job that made you feel useful is hanging by a thread, or you already lost it. And at night, when you turn off the screen, there's a moment where the room feels way too big for just one man. And yet, here you are, breathing, with questions stuck in your chest that won't let you sleep. You ask yourself, where did I fail? Why did everyone leave? Why did God, after I asked for help, allow me to end up with almost nothing? And there's a part of you that you don't dare to say out loud, but He hears it. If God is with me, why do I feel so abandoned? Before we go on, stay with me. Don't close this. These words are not generic. This is not empty motivation. There is a specific deep reason why God is allowing your human supports to fall away. And if you understand it, you will never see your life the same way again. What I'm about to tell you might hurt, but it can also save you from turning this season into unnecessary destruction when it was actually designed for construction. There is something almost no one tells a man who is falling. While you cling to people to avoid feeling alone, God has been trying to speak to you without all the noise around you. But you were so full of voices, schedules, distractions, shallow conversations, and emotional dependencies that what He wanted to say kept getting lost between notifications. So little by little, without asking your permission, He started to remove what then should be the place of His voice in your life. That friend you always called first. That relationship where you knew you weren't growing, but you stayed because it kept you from feeling alone. That circle where you looked good to everyone except yourself. That activity that filled your nights so you wouldn't have to hear your own conscience. One by one, those supports got weaker. Not because God hates you, not because He enjoys watching you break, but because He knew that if He didn't touch what was falsely holding you up, you would never discover the real strength of being held up by Him alone. There comes a moment in a man's life when God stops treating him like a child who gets everything solved and starts treating him like a man who is being trusted with something greater. That moment almost never arrives in the middle of applause. It usually arrives in the middle of losses. That's why you're here. Not just watching another video. You're receiving a direct diagnosis. Think about all those times you asked God for strength, for character, for wisdom, for direction. Sometimes you did it through tears, sometimes in silence, sometimes just in thoughts, without words. I want to change. I want to be different. I want to become someone who's worth something, someone solid, someone real. You assumed the answer would be more comfort, more resources, more open doors. But God rarely builds a strong man in soft environments. Many times, the answer to what you asked Him is this: loneliness, silence, and apparent loss. If up to this point you feel like I'm reading your heart, listen carefully. You're not the only one. But this stage is intimate. It is personalized. This is not a mass production process. This is God dealing with you by your own name. And if these words match your last week's, this is not a coincidence. Don't skip ahead. Don't run away. Give these minutes to God. It is the least you can do after everything He has allowed just to get your full attention. There were men before you who knew this kind of emptiness. Men who had everything and within days had nothing. Men who lost trust, family, stability, reputation. They weren't weak. They weren't less than you. They were chosen for something that required a kind of faith you do not learn when everything is going well. It is a faith you learn when the only chair left in the room is the presence of God. But today, I don't want you to get lost in someone else's story. I want to talk about you. About that recent night when you looked at the sky, or the ceiling, or the floor, with a heart so heavy you didn't even know what to say. You felt the pain of betrayal, the pain of indifference, the pain of your own mistakes, the pain of feeling like God stayed silent at the exact moment you needed him most. And maybe you thought, it seems like nobody cares. That thought was more dangerous than you realize, because when a man concludes that no one cares, he becomes vulnerable to slowly destroying himself. That's where God steps in, not as the last option, but as the only one who truly sees what's happening inside. That's why he started closing doors you wanted open. That's why he allowed calls to go unanswered that you desperately wanted to receive. That is why he let certain masks fall so you could finally see what you didn't want to see. He didn't do it to humiliate you, but so you would finally understand who actually stays when everyone else leaves. There are things that only come to light when you no longer have an audience. Pride disguised as I can handle everything alone. The desperate need for approval. The habit of building your worth based on who stands next to you. The way you tried to feel enough through achievements, bodies, money, shallow conversations. As long as all that was working, you could keep ignoring it. But now, face to face with the mirror of this loneliness, God is showing you the real man you are, not the character you were selling. And that hurts. But that pain is a kind of internal surgery. Listen carefully. God never leaves a man empty just to laugh at him. He allows emptiness to show him that what truly matters never depended on the hands that left, but on the hands that never did, even when he wasn't looking at them. This stage where it seems no one understands you, no one supports you, no one walks with you, this is the perfect ground for God to speak to you without intermediaries. Right now, you could shut everything down, close your heart, harden yourself, and decide you'll never trust anyone again, not even God. Or you could do what very few men do. Stay. Open your heart. Admit that the way you are right now is not enough. And dare to listen until the end to what God wants to explain to you about this season. If you feel this message is for you, do something simple while you keep listening. Decide in your mind that you will not get distracted. Don't switch tabs. Don't escape to another video. This might be the moment where you finally understand what God has been building through everything you lost. There is a pattern that repeats itself in the lives of men God takes seriously. Before he trusts them with something big, he walks them into a room where most of the time they enter surrounded, but they leave alone. Not because God doesn't value relationships, but because he wants to make sure your heart doesn't depend on human applause in order to obey. When a man needs everyone to agree with him, before he does what's right, he's not ready. When he needs to feel surrounded to feel valuable, he hasn't understood who defines his worth. When his decisions are controlled by the fear of being alone, he is still a slave. So God allows a season where you feel like there's no one left to call, no one to impress, no one to prove anything to. And right there when your ego no longer has an audience, God starts talking to you about the things you used to dodge. Your character, when nobody's watching what you do with your time, when nobody sees the choices you make, when you're not performing for approval. Maybe this has happened to you. Before, you always had someone to blame. You blamed your childhood, your friends, your ex, your boss, your environment. Now, alone, you're starting to see chains you chose to hold on to. And even though it hurts to admit it, that is the beginning of real freedom. Because as long as your story is, everyone failed me except me, you stay bound. When you finally say, I was wrong. I held on where I shouldn't have. I chased recognition where there was no real love. God finally has something he can work with. Truth. The loneliness God allows is not a prison cell to destroy you. It is a private room where he wants to sit with you and peel back layers you would never expose in front of others. He knows your best public version, but he also knows your tired version, your frustrated version, the version no one sees. And he still wants to work with you there. Here is a key. What you re-going through is not just about what you lost. It's about what God sees you can become. If God didn't see something in you worth refining, he would leave you comfortable, entertained, surrounded by people, but empty inside. The discomfort you feel is proof that he decided not to leave you as you were. When a man has no one left but God, his conversations begin to change. He stops only saying, "Bless me," and starts saying, "Transform me." He stops begging for everyone who left to come back and starts asking, "What do you want me to see in all this? What are you trying to correct in me? What kind of man are you trying to build?" That is the question that marks a before and after. Because from that point on, this season stops feeling like punishment and starts becoming training. And training means there is purpose. Picture this. You come home after another heavy day. You feel that emptiness in your chest that you used to cover with distractions. Today, you don't have as many. You put your phone aside. Instead of drowning your mind in noise, for the first time in a long time you sit in silence and say honestly, "God, if you really are all I have left, help me understand why I'm here." That sincere sentence weighs more in heaven than 1,000 empty phrases. In moments like that, God starts aligning things inside you. He brings back to mind decisions, conversations, patterns. He shows you how you settled for emotional crumbs, how you tolerated environments that killed what he wanted to awaken, how you slowly gave ground to things that were pulling you away from your purpose. That internal review hurts, but it brings peace. It shows you that you haven't been forgotten. You've been intervened. Here is another truth almost no one tells you. Many of the losses that hurt you now were answers to your own prayers when you said, "Take away what's not from you," without realizing the weight of those words. He took you seriously. And when God takes your words seriously, he also takes you seriously as a man. That's why this loneliness is not a meaningless void. It's a transition. It is the stretch of the road where God tears down the man who only survived by fitting in and starts raising up the man who lives from identity, not borrowed approval. If something inside you is lighting up as you hear this, do something very simple while you keep going. Decide this will not be just another season where you sit around mourning what left. Decide that from now on, you will use every hard dawn, every uncomfortable silence, to talk with God with a level of honesty you've never had before. And if this message is describing your reality, later I want you to write, "God is speaking to me," as a public declaration that you will not waste this process. Because the loneliness God allows has a second act. After confronting you, he starts rebuilding you. And the rebuilding doesn't start on the outside. It starts in your mind. He begins to teach you to see yourself the way he sees you. You stop defining yourself by the ones who left and start defining yourself by the one who stayed. You stop repeating, "I wasn't enough," and start realizing, "I was important enough for him not to leave me comfortable." You begin to understand that the door that closed was not humiliation. It was protection. That the betrayal you felt was exposure, so you could see fake loyalties. That the temporary lack is sharpening your stewardship, your discipline, and your dependence instead of your pride. At that point, when a man starts to see his story through this lens, something in him changes tone. He no longer just prays for what he lost to come back. He prays not to lose what he's learning. He prays not to choose again out of desperation what God already removed out of love. I know it hurts. I know there are nights when you wish you could go back, just so you wouldn't feel this emptiness. I know there are memories that chase you and conversations that want to stop replaying in your mind. But listen, you were not thrown away. You were set apart. You were not ignored. You were called. When a man has no one left but God, his story is not over. It has become too serious to stay full of filler. If you decide to stay in this process, you will see something else. God will start bringing people into your life who are different from those you lost. People who don't come out of convenience, but out of purpose. But those new connections almost always arrive after this kind of season, not before. Because if they came earlier, you would turn them into crutches instead of a team. And He doesn't want to give you new crutches. He wants to give you a spine. So before you ask God to surround you again, ask Him this: what kind of man do you want me to be for the people you're going to bring? Because it's not just about who leaves or who arrives. It's about who you are becoming in the middle of this loneliness. One day you will look back and you will understand why God allowed every no, every silence, every distance. You will remember the ones who left, but without hatred. You will see the places where you cried, but with gratitude. You will see the closed doors and say, if that door hadn't shut, I would have never discovered what I now have with you. None of that would have happened if God hadn't brought you to this point where you felt you had no one left. He led you here not to watch you fall, but to stop you from leaning on what always breaks. It was an absence. It was firm love. Love that wakes you up. Love that pulls you away from the noise. Love that looks you in the eyes and says, now we can talk. Just you and me, without masks. If today you are empty of people, but not empty of God, you are not ruined. You are in process. And the work doesn't always look pretty while it's under construction, but the architect knows exactly what he's building. If after everything you've heard, you're still here, it's because something inside you recognizes that this word is for you. Don't ignore it. If you know God has spoken to you, write in the comments, God is enough, as a conscious declaration of faith in the middle of your process. Take a moment after this message to talk to Him with the same honesty with which you've cried in silence. Share this video with that man you see slowly fading without saying a word, because this might be the difference between giving up or finally understanding that God is still working. Subscribe if you want to keep receiving messages that don't just motivate you, but realign you, correct you, and remind you who you are when everything else falls apart. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming, because if God is calling you in this season, it's not to entertain you. It's to raise you up. Your story didn't end when everyone left. Your real story begins when you decide to keep walking wounded if you must, but side by side with God alone.